This one is a really nice flow chart to step us through just some of the behavioral responses, kind of like a checklist that ultimately leads to key feeding behaviors, right? Which is the continuity of eating and when they stop eating. And for many insects, this is particularly important because it can be life or death. And I'll explain this very shortly with this example of monarch caterpillars that specialize on milkweed plants. So this is showing you some of the key steps involved in this process that ultimately leads to the animal finishing the meal. But you also notice that in some cases, it stops that sequence altogether. So if it palpates the food, it probably means the food is unsuitable. And so it stops feeding and it moves on searching for a new food source. However, if it palpates the food and it is a suitable food source, then it will move to the next step, which is the exploratory bite. Now, I wanted to explain this in the context of the monarch caterpillars that you see here because it is absolutely crucial. And like I said, can be life or death. So some of you who are familiar with monarch butterflies, the caterpillar stage is quite an attractive little beast over here. You can see in image B up here that this is a later stage caterpillar, so quite advanced in development. Whereas down here at the bottom, a tiny little neonate here, and you'll see in this particular image, it's dead, right? Because you can see the dribble of latex that has emerged from the milkweed. Yet these animals are specialists on milkweeds, despite the fact that milkweeds are incredibly toxic. And it is, in fact, the toxicity of this plant, and there are a variety of milkweed plants, some we have here in Australia as well. It is because these plants are toxic that these animals have evolved to become specialists, because throughout their larval stages, they do consume increasing amounts of these toxins and then sequester them and express them when they are actually adults, so that those toxins act as deterrents to would-be predators. But, as a juvenile neonate, exposure to too much toxin can kill you. So you'll notice here all these white droplets. These are the latex and the toxic latex that's produced by the milkweed plant. This is where this exploratory bite is crucial, because what many of these caterpillars do, and it's not just exclusive to monarch caterpillars, because many other caterpillar species that eat toxic plants do this, that exploratory bite is basically a bite to slash and essentially to cause mechanical damage to the plant, so that the globule of toxin, or the milk in the milkweed, so to speak, starts to drain from the plant, following which the animal will start to eat the tissues that have less latex in them, because the latex has already been drained out. Now, in the unlikely event that the latex, by virtue of gravity, basically drowns this tiny little caterpillar, of course, then the caterpillar dies. But you can see in more cases than not, the caterpillar is able to leverage these exploratory bites to cause the latex to leave the plant, and then once the defense system, the chemical defense system of the plant is reduced, then the caterpillar can very, very safely go on eating them. Now, definitely when they are much larger, they can deal with the latex a little bit more. So this exploratory bite is quite crucial, because it gives the animal some indication of the physical nature of the food, right? And if it is unsuitable, it will then move to a new food source. But if it is suitable, then it will commence the meal and eventually reach satiation and finish the meal before looking for a new food source. So this sort of sequence, behavioral sequence, you can think of as a checklist that herbivorous insects, well, generally herbivorous insects tend to use to make sure that they ultimately are quite successful with being able to forage.